This episode is for the woman who has been trying for years to create a life she loves. You know how deep down you were created for more, but no matter how hard you try, something keeps getting in the way. You've read the self-help books, you've gone to counseling, you've prayed, you've tried to change your mindset and your habits. And yet you still find yourself reacting in ways you wish you didn't, repeating patterns you thought you had already worked through. If that's you, I want you to hear something clearly at the beginning of this podcast. You are not broken. Sometimes the reason we stay stuck isn't because we aren't trying hard enough. It's because transformation requires something many of us were never taught. How to respond with curiosity instead of judgment, with compassion instead of criticism. And from that place, you begin to experience clarity instead of chaos. Because when your body calms, you begin to see choices you didn't realize you had. And that's what today's conversation is about. Welcome to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast. I'm Megan Babcock, and this podcast exists to help people heal, grow, and step into the life they were created to live. Before we go any further, though, if you have not listened to the previous 3 episodes, I want to ask you to stop here and go back because each one of them builds upon the next. In those episodes, we walked through the process of getting unstuck and beginning to move toward the life you were created to live. Today, we're going to talk about the final piece of lasting transformation, community, because healing rarely happens in isolation. Are you tired of repeating the same patterns, feeling stuck in your story, and wondering if real change is even possible? In my book, Unstuck, Break Free from What's Holding You Back and Create a Life You Love, I walk you through the path from survival to transformation, blending faith, neuroscience, and soul-deep healing. This book, it's not just words on a page. It's a companion for your journey. Whether you've experienced trauma or just feel lost in the noise of life, Unstuck will meet you there with truth, compassion, and tools that actually work. It's time to stop surviving and start living your story with purpose. Grab your copy today on Amazon. In the last 3 episodes, I introduced a very simple framework built around 3 questions: the why, what, how. This framework takes you from curiosity to clarity. It's designed for those moments when your nervous system becomes activated. You might recognize that activation as your heart racing, tightness in your chest, racing thoughts, overwhelm, irritation, or a reaction that feels bigger than the moment itself. That's how it felt for me. But it's important that you're able to identify what does nervous system activation look like for you, because it's going to be the cue to pause in that moment. This will give you a chance to not react automatically. And if you ask these 3 questions, why am I feeling so activated right now? What am I needing in this moment? And how do I respond in a way that moves forward? That pause interrupts the automatic reaction and opens the door for you to do something different. Curiosity is such a powerful tool, and there is research that confirms it is an effective approach. There's a recent paper published in Frontiers in Psychology, and it explains that modern psychotherapy has become increasingly complex. There are countless theories, models, and diagnostic frameworks that are designed to explain human behavior. Now, while these frameworks can help, they can also make healing feel overwhelming. So the authors propose something surprisingly simple. They write, a simpler approach is to cultivate curiosity towards experience. When we approach our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors with curiosity instead of judgment, we begin to notice patterns that were previously operating just automatically. And awareness creates the opportunity to choose something different. Healing accelerates when we move from trying to fix ourselves by listening to all those self-help books, going to counseling, all those things, they can be good. But if it's keeping you stuck, time to try something different. Because curiosity increases awareness, it opens the door for new insights. But curiosity works best when it's paired with self-compassion, which is what you gain when you ask yourself the second question: what do I need? Leading expert in self-compassion research is Dr. Kristen Neff, and she explains self-compassion as responding to ourselves with the same kindness and care we would offer to a friend who is struggling. Now, pause for a minute and ask yourself, how often is that your response when you become triggered? I know it wasn't mine. My first response was criticizing myself, judging myself, playing it over and over again, and that was not working. It was not changing my circumstances. When I started asking the question, what do I need right now? When my nervous system was activated, I found that sometimes the needs were pretty simple. Maybe just take a few slow breaths, or you are tired and you need a few moments of quiet. If I wanted to turn and run, I knew my body was saying, go get a walk and release some of that energy. Maybe if I paused, I would realize I haven't really drank any water. I'm hungry. And when you take time to assess, are there other things going on here that are creating this additional overwhelm and anxiety that I could actually meet that need? Asking this question, pausing here, allows your body to feel safe, and your nervous system calms even more. And when you calm, your thoughts begin to become more clear. And this calm is what allows you to move into the third question of how do I move forward from here with clarity? If you are feeling anxious and overwhelmed, clarity is not what you're experiencing. You are experiencing chaos. And in chaos, we don't recognize that we have choice. So when you're standing there, how do I move forward from here? You're standing at a crossroad. I recently got certified in becoming a brain health coach and was trained by Dr. Daniel Amen. And he has an exercise that he teaches about standing at this fork in the road. So when we're triggered, our brain automatically goes down the familiar road, the reaction we've practiced so many times before. But when we pause and become curious, we begin to see the fork. And we can ask ourselves, do I want to keep responding the way I always have, or am I willing to try something different? Every choice you make or choice you don't make is moving you in a certain direction. The question is the choice leading you into the patterns that have not been working, or toward the life that you actually want to create? Staying curious and compassionate allows you to experiment with new responses. And over time, those new choices begin to build a different path forward. I know this because in my own personal journey, for years, I went to counseling trying to understand why I felt stuck. We talked about my past. We talked about relationships. One, I wasn't really being very honest with myself. So then I couldn't really be honest with a counselor. And the other thing is simply talking about things wasn't creating the change that I hoped for. And sometimes it felt even more overwhelming. And definitely I felt like I just kept going in a circle. What began shifting things for me was when I started turning inward and allowing the Holy Spirit to guide me. If you think back to the first episode of this Unstuck series, I shared about an incident that happened with my son and how it left me realizing that I no longer wanted to hurt my kids anymore. And I was desperate, crying on the bathroom floor. And that's when I heard the voice to take my thoughts captive. Over time, this has become this framework of taking my thoughts captive, understanding them, showing myself compassion. It was the Holy Spirit who told me what I needed to do next in order to move forward. And as I began practicing this, I started to notice the patterns. I started recognizing the beliefs, and those beliefs were writing my story. But a few months after just being on that bathroom floor, I had a domestic abuse advocate come into my life, and that support changed everything. I was able to leave the environment that I was in that I had tried so many times to leave because I had somebody who had walked that path, had healed, and was now coming back to help others. I had been living in survival mode at this point for almost 20 years, and I really didn't understand at the time, but many of my reactions, decisions, and relationships I found myself in were being shaped by unresolved trauma. She helped me understand something incredibly important. Trauma often becomes stuck in the mind and the body when we don't have the support to process what we've experienced. When painful experiences happen and we don't have someone safe helping us make sense of them, our nervous system stores those moments as unfinished survival responses. Our brain then develops patterns that are meant to protect us, but those same patterns can keep us stuck. So instead of responding from clarity, we react from survival. This advocate had done the work of healing her own story, and she helped me see something I had never believed before. That the brain can change, that patterns can change, and that the life I was living did not have to be the life I stayed in. So after leaving this abusive marriage, I also joined 2 different groups with people working through similar experiences. And something powerful began to happen. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who understood. For years, I had tried to keep everything hidden. But as I began sharing my story, the weight I had been carrying began to lift, and I started to feel lighter. I was becoming more free. Science can also explain why this happens. Our nervous system regulates in relationship with other people. This is often called co-regulation, and we think about it when we have young children. As parents, we are there to help them regulate. So when a child looks over to a parent when they're little to assess if someone is safe or not, and the parent says, "It's okay," is smiling, then they feel safe and they trust that person, versus if you respond in fear, then the child might start crying, calling out for you, reaching for you, because they are being regulated by you. I was not good at helping my kids regulate. If you remember, that was the big thing in my story about how I was so triggered when my son was crying and we were going through something really hard. And I was trying to get him to stop crying because of how uncomfortable it was making me feel. But when we're surrounded by safe, supportive people, our nervous system begins to calm. Hormones like oxytocin increase feelings of trust and safety. And when the body feels safe, the brain can finally process that experience. So healing happens best in connection, not isolation.
What if your breakthrough wasn't found in striving, but in walking? What if clarity, healing, and direction came not in the hustle, but in quiet, intentional steps led by the Spirit? Sacred Pathways is a monthly walking mentorship designed to align your body, soul, and spirit with the wisdom of God. Each month, you'll receive 12 walking lessons. These are short teachings designed to be experienced on the move. You'll also get one live group session and access to a community of women committed to walking in purpose. This is more than a routine, it's a rhythm of renewal, a sacred invitation to process life with God, one step at a time. If you're hungry for deeper intimacy with the Lord, clarity in your calling, and healing that moves through your whole being, this is your path. Join Sacred Pathways and start walking in wisdom today. Now enrolling on itsyourstorytotell.com.
If you think about it, trauma occurred because you didn't have somebody to support you. So wouldn't it make sense that healing has to happen where you can have the support that you need? And that's what I found in these groups. There's also research that's been done by Brene Brown, who is one of my favorite teachers. She talks about the power of vulnerability. I saw vulnerability as a weakness, but now I see it as courageous and a willingness to be seen. When we share our stories in safe spaces, connection grows. And connection is one of the most powerful forces for healing. For me, that year of being in community was life-changing because I wasn't doing the work alone anymore. The journey actually led me to becoming a certified holistic nurse coach, a certified mental health coach specializing in trauma and crisis, and I most recently certified as a brain health coach. For the last 10 years, I've been rewriting my story, and it led to the creation of It's Your Story to Tell, the podcast, and the nonprofit. Looking back, I can see how God was with me through every difficult season. He gave me strength to walk through darkness so I could shine light for others walking through similar struggles. And now, through It's Your Story to Tell, we're here to provide free resources and scholarships for women who are ready to create a new life. When I was going through my transformation and having to leave a domestic violence marriage, I was one of the fortunate ones. One, I got a domestic abuse advocate. Two, even when the money had been taken out of the account and I was left with really nothing except the rent that had been prepaid, which was a total God thing. I had about 5 months of not having to pay rent, and I had recently gotten a new job that could sustain me and the kids without any help. All I had to do was change my bank account that my direct deposit was going into. And I know that that is not the story for most women in this situation. And so I know that God needs me to use the privilege that I had in order to be able to move my family from that place of surviving to thriving and growing and transforming our lives to something that helps more people. And through the Transformation Academy on It's Your Story to Tell, we are providing free courses, workshops, Bible studies, book studies, and group coaching programs so that you can be supported in this process of developing curiosity, compassion, and community so that you can lead yourself out of the situation that you don't even like to creating the life that you love. And then we also have scholarship opportunities if you need different programs to help pay for counseling, if that's what you need, coaching programs, and we're here to come alongside of you and find a way to meaningfully support you so that you can make this transformation a reality. This podcast exists to remind you of what's possible. I hope that it encourages you when the journey feels hard because you can see that it was worth it. If something in this episode resonated with you, I want to invite you to take a step forward. Would you explore the resources available through It's Your Story to Tell? Consider maybe even joining one of our programs or just scheduling a conversation with me to learn about what kind of support we might have for you. And if you're not needing the support right now, still go check it out because you never know when you might be sitting with someone who needs the very resources that we have available. Our goal is that women do not have to walk this journey alone. Thank you for being part of it. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you know and can believe that your story matters and that your healing matters because God has placed a purpose inside of you and you were created to impact the people around you and lead others to freedom. Remember, it's your story to tell. Thanks for being here.